this session we will see the second type of iterative statements in Python, that is for loop. So we have already seen while loop, right? How we can perform repetition using this while loop and all. Now for loop is actually defined in a little bit different way. That is actually it is used to iterate over a sequence of items. Okay, sequence of items. Sequence can be anything like list, tuple, string, etc. So it is used to iterate over a sequence or other iterable objects. So iterating over a sequence is actually called traversal. Each iteration over that sequence. If we are taking one item, serve it, again second item, like that. Until that sequence is exhausted, this for loop will work. So we will see how the syntax for this for loop. For val in sequence, body of for loop. So the meaning is that sequence is a sequence of items, can be a list, string, tuple, etc. And this for loop will take each item from that sequence and that will be assigned to this variable, whatever may be the variable name here. Each item will be assigned to this and then body of the loop will be executed for that item. Again next item will be assigned to this val. This body will be executed and this procedure will be repeated until all the items in this sequence are served or processed. When the list or when the sequence is exhausted, this body of the for loop will be executed. That is the working of for loop. So val is the variable that takes the value of the item inside the sequence on each iteration. And this loop continues until we reach the last item in the sequence. And the body of the for loop is separated from the rest of the code using indentation, just like any other block of statement. We have seen the if, while, etc. There also the body of the for loop is separated from other statements using this indentation. Okay. Now we will see the for loop flow chart. This is how it proceeds. So our condition for repetition is there is some item in the sequence, right? So condition we are checking here is whether already the last item is reached. In that case we have to stop or we have to exit the loop, right? So if yes, exit the loop. Otherwise we have one item in our hand, execute the body of the for loop for that item. Again go to that sequence, take another item. If already the list or the sequence is exhausted, we have to exit the loop. This will be repeated. Okay. We can see an example for this for loop. Here as a sample program, we are taking a program to find the sum of all numbers stored in a list. So we are given a list of numbers. We have to find the sum of all those numbers together. So we are given the list. Okay, square bracket indicates the list, right? So these are the sequence of items in that list and that is assigned to a variable named numbers. What you have to do, we have to find the sum of all numbers. Just like any simple logic, we can use a cumulative sum variable, say sum. Sum is initialized to 0. So after each iteration, we will add one value from this list into this sum variable. That is the procedure. We will see how the for loop can be used here to iterate over the list for val in numbers. The sequence of items here is numbers. Each item we are taking from that into val. Each item means each number we are assigning from this numbers list into this val and that should be added to the sum. Okay, to find the cumulative sum. So sum is equal to sum plus val. The only statement within the for loop is this, right? Just to find the sum of each item. So for the first iteration, the val will be 6. That will be added to sum. Again for the next iteration, since the items are there, the list is not exhausted. The second item will be assigned to val, that is 5. That will be added here like that. This will be repeated as long as all the items are served from this list. So when the items are exhausted, after serving 11, what happens? Yeah, the sequence is exhausted. In that case, the body of the loop will be exited and the control will reach here. So we can write here the statement for printing the sum, right? After all the iterations are over. So we can put the statement for printing the sum. Here the message here and the value sum can be printed. So in this case, since the numbers are already given, the output is actually 48, that is sum of all numbers. So here we can use this for loop to iterate over a sequence of items. Now you may think that for this counter control loop, how to be repeated a number of times or such case, how can we use this for loop, right? Yeah, for that we have a special function called a range function. If we are using this range function in for loop, we can serve it as a counter control loop. In such cases, we can use this range function. We will see what is actually a range function. A range function is actually used to generate a sequence of numbers. Okay. Just for example, range 10 will generate numbers from 0 to 9. That is, by default it starts from 0 and the argument given here is 10. That means we have to stop just before 10. The upper bound plus 1 is actually 10. And this function will generate a sequence of numbers with a step size of 1. Okay, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. up to 9. That will be generated by this range function. Actual definition of this range function carries 3 different arguments. Range, within the function argument, we can give start, stop and step size. Start means from where we have to start. What is the first number to be generated and where it should end, that is stop. And third argument is step size. In what step size we have to produce the numbers. Just for example, if we are giving a step size of 2, the numbers will be skipped by 1. That is 0, 2, 4, like that. Numbers will be generated. Okay. So if we are giving only one argument, that will be treated as a stop value, where we have to stop. In that case, default value for start is actually 0 and the default value for this step size is actually 1. Okay, so we can provide either 1 argument, 2 argument or 3 argument. If you are giving 2 argument, those will be start and stop. First argument will be taken as start and the second will be taken as stop. For the step size, the default value 1 will be taken. Okay, if you are giving 3 values, the first will be start, second will be stop and third will be step size. Like this, we can use the range function for any purpose like to generate a sequence numbers that can be combined with for loop to perform this counter control loop. Okay, and this function does not store all the values in memory. It will simply generate the numbers for that processing time. It will not be stored anywhere. So it remembers the start, stop and step size and generate next number on the go. To force this function to output all the items, we can use the function list. If you are using list, within that if you are putting this range function, corresponding list will be generated. Otherwise, it will generate the numbers on the go for processing only. So range 10 is actually equivalent to range 0, 10. Okay, so we are just omitting this first argument. By default, its value will be 0. And if you are, so in that case, no values are actually stored anywhere. It will generate a sequence of numbers from 0 to 9. If you want to store it somewhere, we can put like this, list range of 10. In that case, the list will be generated with the value 0 to 9. And we are giving here 2 different arguments. Range 2, 8 means the starting value is 2 and the stopping value is 8. That means upper bound plus 1 is 8. In that case, the list will be generated. The value will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if we are giving 3 different arguments, 2, 23. 2 is the starting value, 20 is the upper bound and 3 is the step size. So we have to start from 2, then step size is 3, right? 5, 8, 11, 14, 17. Next number is 20, but we should not include that, right? This upper bound is given as 20. So we have to stop in 17. That is how the range function works. Now let us see how this range function can be used in for loop to perform a counter control looping. We can take the same example we have solved using that while loop, right? Yeah, that is to find the sum of first n natural numbers. That is 1, 2 plus etc. up to n n is given by the user. We have to read n, then we have to perform this summing up using a loop. Here the for loop can be used. Just like in the while loop also, where first we are inputting the value of n up to n what we have to add. Okay, n will be assigned to this variable n itself. Then to store the cumulative sum, we are using the variable sum. Here actually no counter is actually required, right? Because for loop by default it will be automatically generated. So for I in range 1, comma n plus 1. By default the start value 0, right? Just to avoid that we can put the start value 1 because we have to add from 1 only. Simply ignore the addition of 0, that is not needed here, right? Yeah. Even if the result is same, we can just avoid some or one iteration using this starting value. Okay. So 1, then we have to add up to n. So definitely the stop size should be n plus 1. For I in range 1 n plus 1, what we have to perform? Each I should be added. I means the values, right? Initially that will be 1, then 2, then 3, like that up to n will be assigned in each iteration to I. So that will be directly added to sum to find the sum. And this is the body of the loop. This will be repeated n times, right? Up to n this will be repeated. After that this range sequence is exhausted. Then body of the loop will be terminated. It will come here. Then we can print the value here. So instead of using that while, we can use a simple statement, right? A for statement. So we can avoid the initialization of the counter, updation of the counter. Everything can be avoided if you are using a for loop. Now we can see an example how this for loop can be used, which is use over items in a sequence and at the same time using indexing also. Okay, just for example, we simply iterate over a set of fruits. We are defining fruits as a list. Apple, banana, orange. 3 items are there in a list and that list is assigned to the variable fruits. And what we are doing is we are iterating over that fruits using index. As you know, this list and all, we can represent each item or we can access each item using the index, right? That means fruits of 0 indicates apple. Fruits of 1 will be banana. Fruits of 2 will be orange. Right? So how we can use a for loop here? For I in range, length of fruits. Actually length of fruits means the number of items in the fruits. Length is a function, built-in function to get the number of items in a sequence. So here is the fruits list. We are taking the length of that into this argument function, argument of this range function, right? So if putting like this, the value here will be 3 because 3 items are there in this fruit list. 3 will be assigned as the argument in the range function here. Okay, for I in range 3, that means the I will be assigned 0 first, then I will be assigned 1, then I will be assigned 2. 3 different values will be assigned in 3 different iterations of this for loop. And what we are doing as the body of the for loop, I like will be printed as this. Then fruits of I, using indexing we are printing the corresponding value. So fruits of I, the initial value of I will be 0, right? Fruits of 0 will be printed in the first iteration, that is I like apple. Fruits of 0 means the first item in the fruit list. Okay. Then the second iteration, I will be assigned the second value in the range function, that is 1. Right? I will be 1. So if you are printing this, fruits of 1, that is second item in this fruits list, that will be banana. And the third time orange will be displayed. So using indexing and length of a sequence in the range function, we can print it. And the same thing we can implement without using this indexing and all. That's the magic of for loop. See here the same fruit list is assigned to these fruits. Then we are using this for loop for I in fruits. In that case we are not using range function length and all. Simply we are assigning the sequence of items here. And I in fruits means each item from the fruits will be assigned to this I variable in each iteration, right? And simply printing I like I. So initial value for this I will be apple, the first item in this fruits list. That will be printed here, right? The second iteration, the banana will be assigned to I. Third iteration, orange will be assigned to I. Simply we can use this function to print different items. So these are the different functionality. Okay. So just to differentiate between how this indexing can be used and simply a for loop can be used it to iterate over different items in a sequence, this program is used. Now for loop with else, just like while loop, we can have an optional else with for loop. So a for loop can have an optional else block as well. The else part is executed if the items in the sequence used in for loop exhaust. In that case, if all the items are served, then the control will be moved to the else part. So if a break statement is there in the body of the for loop and that is executed, definitely this else part will be skipped. It will not be executed. So a for loop's else part runs if no break occurs in the body of a for loop. We will see an example for that, just like the while loop we have already seen in the last video lecture. So here the question is, we have to find whether a given digit we are entering a digit from the keyboard and we are given a list of digits. What we have to check is whether the given digit, the entered digit is there in the given list. That is our task. Okay. So what we are doing here is the list of digits is the set or list of digits already we are given, and we are reading a new digit from the keyboard into input digit. Okay. And what we have to do, we have to take each item from this list and we have to compare whether the entered digit is the same as that. If no items in this list is matching with the entered digit, we have to provide the appropriate message that the item is not found, or else if any one of these items getting matched with the entered digit, we have to provide the message that a digit is in the list. That's our question. So we are using this for loop here for I in list of digits. We are assigning each item from this list of digits into I, and what we are doing, we are comparing the input digit, enter digit from the keyboard, that with this item in the list each time. Okay, first item will be compared first. If they are same, that means the item is already there in the list, right? Then we will print a message. So once the item is found, we need not repeat the loop, right? We can exit the entire loop. So we are putting a break here. So the body of the loop will be exited. It will come out of the entire for and corresponding else. Otherwise, what we are doing, we are checking all the items in the list, right? If there is no match, all the items in the list will be exhausted. In that case, this will not be executed. If there is no match, this if part will not be executed, right? In that case, it will come into this else part. The digit not found will be displayed. Okay, that is the functionality of this else part. So you should be very careful when we are putting this else part, because it should be in the same indentation as the for loop. Okay, otherwise if you are putting in the if indentation, what will be the result? Yeah, it will be act as an else part for this if the first item itself is not matching, it will come here. Okay, so you should be very careful before putting the indentation of the else part. It should be the same indentation as that of the for. Then only it will work as a else for the for loop. Okay, so this is how this for loop with else work. Now you can try some exercise questions. Just to count the number of vowels in a given word using for loop. Count the number of words in a given sentence using for loop. And to check whether the given number is prime or not using for loop. All the three you can try. Thank you.